Welcome to CBC Windsor News at 6. I'm Meg Roberts. Thanks so much for spending part of your evening with us tonight. The city is ahead of its goal to reduce emissions, but there's concern about future progress post-pandemic. Plus an update tonight on the former Sears property, the mall calling it today a blank canvas, and a new restaurant selling a niche product has opened in Windsor. We tell you all about soul food and why it's made its way across the border. A new report highlights promising action on a key climate goal in Windsor. The pandemic having a major impact on that, which for some is concerning, with fears that post-pandemic emissions could bounce back. The CBC's Chris Ensing has the story.
Windsor is beating our greenhouse gas emission targets, a key climate action goal. But a new report from city staff says maintaining that progress is going to be a challenge. Windsor's community-wide emissions have dropped 20% compared to 2014. Council wants a 40% reduction from that baseline year by 2041. There's two noticeable trends in the data. Overall emissions were on the rise, driven by, well, our driving habits. People are driving larger vehicles that use more fuel. Then the pandemic hit, shutting down workplaces, forcing people to stay home and to drive less. That cut back emissions across all sectors. The challenge now, keeping emissions down as our behavior changes coming out of the pandemic. To maintain progress, Windsor will need to continue consuming less natural gas. It's primarily used to heat buildings and power industrial equipment. It makes up half of our overall emissions. Consumption is down, in part because temperatures are up. We're heating our homes with less fuel. But it's also because supply chain issues shut down manufacturers, reducing emissions. The city doesn't have much control over the industrial emitters, but it can help homeowners. Windsor homes are older and use more energy than the average Ontario home. Council will look at a deep energy retrofit program in the fall, which is expected to help with the cost of making a home more energy efficient. On the industrial front, experts say federal climate policies are working. An independent report found industrial carbon pricing is expected to cut emissions by as much as 50% by 2030. Chris Ensing, CBC News, Windsor.
Intimate partner violence accounts for 45% of all assaults in Windsor. That's according to latest crime statistics released by Windsor Police. To address this disturbing trend, police have been changing how they follow up on such incidents. Deputy Chief Jason Crowley says officers are now connecting and speaking with individuals, even if no charges are filed. Windsor crime statistics for January show assaults are still the leading category of crimes against people. During that month, there were 41 reports of assaults involving family members and 90 reports of assaults not involving family. Thefts are the leading category of property crimes. Police say 38% of those thefts involve shoplifting at two particular retail locations. Those locations haven't been disclosed. Well, it can be tough and stressful decision for students figuring out what you want to do after school. Workforce Windsor Essex is trying to make it easier. Today, they hosted the first ever industry tour day for 500 high school students. The CBC's Dale Molnar caught up with some teenagers learning about construction trades.
Up towards you, going to raise the whole arm.
Grade 10 student Mila Stiller gets some hands-on experience with a Bobcat front-end loader. She was among several students who got to walk a few steps in the boots of construction tradespeople at the LaUna Training Center.
What you doing down there?
Looking in a manhole.
Comfortable? How's it feel down there?
It's cold.
It's really cool. Like, I've never done anything like this, so it was definitely like an experience to like learn how to do that. Like, I really enjoyed the presentation that there was, explaining like just all the myths and stuff of saying that trades are just for like people who aren't smart or just for men, and it was a really nice presentation.
I want to do some thinking, and we're going to do some thinking in a way that maybe you haven't thought about before.
Before the students got their hands-on experience, they were given a talk about the advantages of going into the skilled trades, and they learned some things about them they didn't know before.
I thought the pay was a lot lower than it was when they started showing it on the board in the room over there.
It's nice to know like all the possibilities you have in a career. Like I certainly didn't know everything in this career specifically, like all the options you have.
With 700,000 people in the skilled trades expected to retire by the year 2030, the need to recruit new young workers has never been greater.
Our infrastructure spend right now in Canada is at an unprecedented level. The amount of work we're about to have for the next 7 to 10 years is going to be like we've never seen before. So the opportunity for a young mind right now to consider a career in the skilled trades gives them not just a runway, but it's a runway with a destination.
I think we just want to showcase different opportunities in Windsor. We focus a lot on manufacturing, and though that is such a key part of Windsor, we don't really highlight any other opportunities.
In addition to the LaUna Training Center, the students visited 18 other companies in Windsor, Essex, including those in the hospitality sector, social care, technology, and engineering. Dale Molnar, CBC News, Oldcastle.
The old Sears building at Devonshire Mall is going to be demolished. That's to create what officials describe as a blank canvas for a new development.
When you think about it, I would argue it's perhaps one of the best pieces of commercial real estate in Windsor, Essex, kind of next to the EC Row and Howard, and obviously adjacent to Devonshire Mall. So we're not at the point today where we're ready to announce the plans for that space, but we are well advanced in some of our discussions for some future uses there.
The mall says it has put out a tender to find a company to demolish the old building. They expect that to happen sometime in the spring. After that's done, it will be an open area of more than 7 hectares for redevelopment. Devonshire Mall says it will be announcing a tenant in the coming months. Officials expect a new commercial space to open there sometime next year once the building is demolished. Sears shut its doors in Windsor on January 14th, 2018. What was known as Simpson Sears first opened back in 1970 at Devonshire Mall. Take a look at this footage we have of people reacting to its opening.
I was in Windsor, and I think it's very good for Windsor to have.
I thought everything was set up so beautifully.
I thought it was very beautiful in there, and we liked it really well.
Oh, I thought it was very nice. It's really compact. It's all in one. You can do your shopping in all the stores. You can get everything you need.
That's not bad. It's big, but it's crowded. It's better than most places you see.
Oh, you can almost get lost in there.
I thought it was crazy.
I think it was one of the best openings I've ever seen, this shopping plaza, and it's well worth it for southwestern Ontario.
Oh, I think it's fantastic. It's something that we needed for a long time.
What did Junior think of it?
Oh, he liked it. Say hi, Mark.
Hotel Dieu Grace Healthcare says it's resumed more normal operations since the cyber attack in October. Because of that, the hospital has rescinded its code gray. Hotel Dieu says it's confident that the risks associated with the cyber attack have been mitigated. Hotel Dieu was one of 5 hospitals that experienced a cyber attack, which included Windsor Regional Hospital. Staff and patient information was compromised. Interpol, FBI, and OPP were among the law enforcement agencies that assisted with the investigation. The Windsor-Essex County Health Unit is warning people about the upcoming solar eclipse and providing tips to watch it safely. The eclipse isn't expected to happen until April 8th. Totality, which will only happen in parts of Essex County, will come between 3:12 p.m. and 3:15. A partial eclipse will happen for nearly 3 hours around that time. In either occasion, the health unit says looking directly at the sun can cause eye damage and even vision loss. If you want to look up during that time, the health unit recommends using safe solar eclipse filters or watching it on a live stream. Experts say the average for any one spot on Earth to see a total eclipse is about once every 375 years. The Ford government is adding $1.6 billion to try to increase home building. The money will go to support towns and cities for roads, sewer lines, and water pipes in new communities. But what's getting the most reaction is the Premier's comments about the type of housing his government is not backing. Queen's Park reporter Lorenda Redekop has more.
The Premier made his announcement in an under-construction subdivision. He was asked about the new Liberal Party bill to allow fourplexes in neighborhoods province-wide.
You go in the middle of communities and start putting up 4-story, 6-story, 8-story buildings, and right deep into the communities, there's going to be a lot of shouting and screaming. That's a massive mistake.
It puts an end to any questions about whether the PCs could adopt the fourplex policy, recommended by the government's own Housing Affordability Task Force.
It's off the table for us. We're going to build homes, single-dwelling homes, town homes. That's what we're going to focus on.
It brought on lots of reaction from opposition parties. The Liberals clarified this is not about 6 or 8-story buildings.
We've got a NIMBY conservative government led by a NIMBY premier. Anytime our leader, Bonnie Crombie, announces something, Doug Ford gets his back up.
The NDP reaction to the Premier's comments?
Frankly outrageous and actually deeply insulting. He's sending a message to Ontarians that if you can't afford a single-family detached home, you're not welcome in your community or your neighborhood.
But the housing minister says few people are even saying yes to the allowable 3 units per property at just $21,000. Plus, fourplexes do already have the go-ahead in some municipalities, including Toronto and Mississauga.
Those that have the ability to do it, I encourage them to do it. But I'm not going to micromanage from Queen's Park what they should be doing.
The Green Party leader says there's a reason people aren't converting to triplexes.
I would say the minister and the premier need to do some consulting with builders who have made it clear to me at least that because of land acquisition costs, you really need to have a fourplex or higher to make the finances work.
The housing minister projects today's new infrastructure money will make a bigger difference than fourplexes.
There are thousands of homes that can't be built across York Region. There are thousands of homes that can't be built in Niagara Region. It's because of sewer and water.
The head of Ontario's big city mayors says the money will help.
Well, first, I just want to say a huge thank you for the $1 billion. We are very excited to get our check.
The housing minister projects it will lead to not thousands, but millions of homes being built. Lorenda Redekop, CBC News, Richmond Hill.
A group in Windsor held a Nowruz celebration for Afghan newcomers in the city. More than 50 people gathered last night to dance and eat traditional foods. Nowruz is celebrated on the day of the spring equinox. It marks the beginning of the new year on the Persian calendar. CBC's Jennifer LaGrassa joined in on the festivities.
I have noticed that the new arrival to Windsor from Afghanistan, they really needed a time for celebration because they have gone through a lot through the transition of coming to Canada migration process. So we thought, if we want to welcome them to Windsor, this is the best opportunity to, they could get together, and this is the best opportunity to meet each other. I feel really excited to see now the whole hall is full of families in here, and they all are sitting and chatting and enjoying. And since this time, the New Year, Nowruz, is coming the month of Ramadan, and that is like bringing more joyful moment for all of us to open up their fasting.
What is your favorite part about the New Year and the New Year celebrations?
Favorite part is that special food, the traditional one, half mewa. So it is 7 type of dry fruit. So it is very tasty. I very like it.
What are you hoping for this new year?
Happiness, peace, and success for all people who are coming here, for the newcomers who are coming to Canada to be happy to start their own life and be successful in their new path of their life. I want a good and a happy Nowruz for all people who are celebrating this.
A new restaurant in Windsor is bringing Southern taste across the border. It's been a journey for a local entrepreneur who started with pop-ups, now securing a physical location. I caught up with him at his Palliser Street storefront. Rain or shine, this is where you can find Patrick Weatherspoon nearly every day of the week. There's no signage up yet, but he recently moved into his first physical location to sell something that's hard to come by in Windsor.
Soul food is comfort food. It's all about family and everybody having a good time and getting together.
It's a cuisine easily found in Detroit. There's a spot in nearly every pocket of the city. But just minutes over the border, Weatherspoon says there wasn't many options.
It was never a place here that we could go to and sit down and eat a real good home-cooked soul food meal like if though we was in Detroit.
I call it the memory cuisine of the great and great-grandchildren of enslaved people from the American South.
Michael Twitty is an award-winning culinary author and historian. He says food like collard greens, candied yams, and barbecued protein is a link to the past.
It is the only cuisine that is native to something invisible like love and God.
He says due to the number of African Americans who've moved further north over the years, he expected there to be more soul restaurants in southern Ontario.
I expected there would be at least several soul food restaurants in Windsor. I guess it's just about time.
We got sweet potatoes, which is candy yams. We got barbecue chicken wings.
For Weatherspoon, the definition of soul food is easy.
It's all about family, you know. Growing up as a kid in Detroit, Michigan, we had all my cousins come over. We'll go over their house for a weekend, and everybody got together, and my mother would cook.
His mother remains an inspiration to his culinary passion. Her cooking took her places.
Why are we here today? Because we will not surrender.
Like the Million Man March in Washington, D.C. in October of 1995, where she helped cater the event. The march gathered thousands of African American men in a publicity campaign aimed at combating negative racial stereotypes. Weatherspoon, who was 14 at the time, vividly remembers going with his mother.
That really had a really big input on how I live my life and how I raise my kids.
Weatherspoon says a good portion of his clientele is Americans crossing the border or who now live in Canada, but hopes in time to share his soul food with all.
I want them to say, woo, let me go back. Let me tell all my friends.
Get the hats, mittens, and even the snow pants out tomorrow. There's a special weather statement in effect. Your full weather forecast coming up after the break. right, Colette, just rip the Band-Aid off.
Yeah, I feel like I'm in the hot seat, except I guess it's the cold seat here with this winter weather that is on its way. So let me get right to it because there's lots of information that I want to get out to all of you. We do know that we have a special weather statement, and you can see it's extensive. And so, you know, this is for the weather on Friday. But even if by Friday evening it's getting better in southwestern Ontario, if you're going to be doing any traveling because it's the weekend and heading eastward, it's still going to be going on there, and you're just going to be driving further into it. So mostly it is a daytime and into early evening event for us, though, in southwestern Ontario. So I'm going to take you through the timeline and kind of show you where the intensity will be. But just right now, the current temperatures, a lot of colder air in place. Lucky to be above freezing. Not quite in Chatham-Kent, 0, but Windsor at 2 degrees. And then you factor in the winds. And, you know, when the temperature's above freezing, I know it can feel cooler, but we don't really talk about a wind chill unless we're actually below. So we'll talk more about that wind chill for Sarnia, where it feels like -5 or -8 in London or Kitchener, -11 there. The winds have been quite breezy, and they were still fueling some of those snow squalls up until, you know, not that long ago. The last one was finally dropped there around Goderich. So the sustained winds aren't so much the problem, it's the stronger gusts. And if we look ahead, this is now forecast and not what is happening or occurring, we're going to see that they'll kick up a little bit. They're not terribly strong tomorrow, but when you've got snow falling, it doesn't take much to be blowing that around and really reducing the visibility. So that's why I kind of wanted to point that the wind conditions out to you. I know, quiet now for this evening. It's an area of low pressure. The storm is getting its act together back towards the Midwest and the Northern Plains, but really what we would call a Colorado low. As it continues to form and track eastward, we should be fine overnight tonight, but we'll start to see some of that light snow, mostly some flurries at first, kind of developing early tomorrow morning, and then it does fill in a little bit at times and get a little more intense. Look how that band pushes northward, though, so it does mean that may make the accumulations just a little bit less for Windsor, Chatham-Kent, Sarnia, probably a different story. London, a little bit different story as that band moves through, and then we really get out of this by Friday towards the evening or late evening hours, and just clouds and flurries into early Saturday. And then, in fact, we'll start to see things kind of clearing out a little bit for us. So I do have us under 10 centimeters, 5 to about 8 centimeters, but you can see it's enhanced north. It's enhanced east as well. The overnight temperatures, we are going to have a cool overnight. So tomorrow, as that system moves in, it'll actually bump the temperatures up a little bit, so not feeling as cold. 1 degree the daytime high with that snowfall. And I know you've got to take note of this, that weekend not so bad, but we bounce right back at the beginning of next week, Meg.
Well, I had plans to drive up the 401 Friday night, but I'm thinking maybe I'll wait until Saturday.
If you can, or anyone else who's listening, that would be my advice.
Okay, well, thanks so much for that, Colette.
Yeah, you're welcome.
We've got more news coming up. Stay tuned. Immigration Minister announced today that for the first time ever, Canada will set targets for how many people are allowed into the country under temporary resident programs. The goal is to reduce the number over the next 3 years. The CBC's Rafi Boudjikanian reports.
Canada, like many other countries, has become addicted to temporary foreign workers.
And it's high time to treat that addiction, the federal government says. Over the next 3 years, it intends to reduce the number of temporary foreign residents that make up Canada's population from 6.2% down to 5%, something the immigration minister wants to do carefully.
If you look in those large categories, there are ones that we don't control. For example, the humanitarian categories. We are just now starting to get some control over the student category, which is a very large part of that.
Something else Ottawa wants to do is lower the number of foreign workers a business can hire, though it will carve out exemptions for construction, healthcare, and agriculture sectors.
This also encourages employers to prioritize workers that are already here, able and willing to do those roles. As of May 1st, we are asking employers that after they consider and offer the job to Canadian citizens, permanent residents, and refugees, that they also now prioritize recruiting asylum seekers.
Some observers of the Canadian economy say today's announcement may be about sending a message to employers.
In 2022, the government announced a very significant expansion of the temporary foreign worker program. And this is just simply telling employers across the country that's ending. This program is not expanding. We are beginning to push in a different direction.
But others say they do see an impact on housing availability.
If we think of there being 2 to 3 people per household, you're looking at a couple 100,000 homes. So this really will make a difference, because it also means that the non-permanent resident population isn't growing. And we've seen over the last year almost 1 million new non-permanent residents added to Canada's population.
The federal immigration minister says he wants to meet with his provincial and territorial counterparts in early May in order to receive their input on reducing the number of temporary residents before setting his targets. Rafi Boudjikanian, CBC News, Ottawa.
A long-awaited apology was made today to 2 Manitoba men who were switched at birth almost 70 years ago. Premier Wab Kinew told them that, at the very least, the government owed them that much.
I stand here as the Premier of Manitoba to apologize to each of you directly. Richard Bouvet, I am sorry. Edward Ambrose, I am sorry.
Edward Ambrose and Richard Bouvet were born in a small municipality-run hospital in 1955, but they were mistakenly sent home with each other's parents. The truth came out decades later. Well, that's it for CBC Windsor News. Thanks so much for tuning in. Looking forward to seeing you back here tomorrow night.